I want you to imagine something. You're sitting at your desk, maybe it's a Sunday evening, and you've just finished watching some video about investing. And the guy on screen is talking about compound interest like it's the eighth wonder of the world. He pulls up a chart, puts in $500 a month at 8% returns. 30 years later, boom, $2 million. And somewhere in your chest, there's this tiny flicker of hope. Like, okay, maybe I can do this. But then reality sort of quietly walks back into the room. Because you look at your bank account, and after rent, after groceries, after the electric bill and the loan payment, and whatever else life decided to cost this month, you don't have $500. You have maybe $50, maybe $80 on a good month. And you start to wonder, is it even worth it? Is compound interest even real for someone like me? Or is it just something rich people use to feel even better about already being rich? That question, that's exactly what we're going to sit with today. Because the honest answer is more complicated and more human than most financial content will ever tell you. Here's the thing nobody says out loud. Compound interest is real. The math works. That part isn't a lie. But the framing around it, the way it gets presented to regular people, that part is, at best, incomplete. And at worst, it's quietly demoralizing in a way that makes people give up before they even start. Because the way compound interest is always explained, it sounds passive, effortless, like money just multiplies itself if you wait long enough. And technically, yes, that's true. But what they leave out is that the compounding effect is almost invisible at small amounts for a very, very long time. Think about it. If you invest $50 a month at a 7% annual return, after 1 year, you have roughly $624. The interest you earned? Maybe $23. $23. That's not a number that changes your life. That's barely a tank of fuel. And I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm saying it because I think the silence around this creates a specific kind of financial shame that nobody talks about. People invest $50 a month, see what feels like nothing happening, and then quietly stop. Not because they're irresponsible, but because nobody told them the truth about when compounding actually kicks in and what has to happen before it does. The real story of compounding isn't about patience. It's about input. And most financial content skips that part entirely. So let's actually talk about this clearly, because I think you deserve a straight explanation. Compound interest works in two phases. There's the accumulation phase, where you're building the base. And then there's the acceleration phase, where the base gets big enough that the returns on it actually start to feel significant. Most people get told about the acceleration phase. Almost nobody explains how long the accumulation phase actually takes, and how much of it depends on how much you put in, not just how long you wait. Here's a simple way to feel this. Say you invest $100 a month for 10 years at 7% annual returns. By the end of year 10, you've put in $12,000 of your own money. Your actual balance? Around $17,000. So compounding added roughly $5,000 over a decade. That's real money, but it's not retirement money. It's not freedom money. It's a nice emergency fund. Now bump that number. Say $500 a month. Same 10 years, same return. You've put in $60,000. Your balance is around $87,000. The compounding added almost $27,000. That's where you start to feel it. That's where the math starts to work emotionally, not just theoretically. And that gap, the gap between what $100 does and what $500 does, that's what nobody talks about. Because the truth is, compounding rewards capital. It rewards the size of what you can put in. And for someone who doesn't have a lot of extra money each month, the early years of investing can feel almost invisible. Now here's where the psychology gets really interesting. There's actually a term in behavioral economics. It's sometimes called the effort-reward imbalance. The basic idea is that human beings are wired to stop doing things when the reward doesn't seem proportional to the effort. We're not wired for invisible progress. We're wired to see what we're building. And investing tiny amounts for years with almost no visible feedback, that's psychologically hard. It's not a character flaw. It's just how humans work. We quit the gym when we don't see results in 6 weeks. We quit the diet when the scale doesn't move. And we stop investing when the balance looks like it hasn't changed in 3 months. But here's what's quietly happening beneath the surface that actually matters more than the compound interest chart. When you invest consistently, even small amounts, you are doing something far more powerful than growing money. You are building a habit that is almost impossible to unlearn. You're training your brain to treat investing as a fixed cost, not an optional extra. And that habit? That's what's going to change your life. Not the $23 in interest you earned in year one. Because the people who end up with real wealth, and I mean regular people, not tech founders, almost always say the same thing when you ask them how they got there. They didn't time the market. They didn't find some secret investment. They just kept going. They automated it. They stopped thinking about it. And then one day, maybe year 12 or year 15, they looked at their account and thought, when did this get this big? The compounding kicks in. It really does. But not in year one. And the bridge between year 1 and year 15 is the habit. So this is the mindset shift I want to offer you. Stop measuring whether your investing is working by looking at the number in your account. That's the wrong feedback signal, especially early on. Instead, measure whether you invested this month. That's it. Did you move the money? Did the habit hold? Because in the early years of building wealth, consistency is the return. The actual financial return is almost irrelevant at small amounts. What's irrelevant now becomes everything later, but only if the habit survives long enough to matter. And there's something else here that I think is quietly important. The people who feel most trapped by money aren't always the ones earning the least. They're often the ones who never built the muscle of moving money intentionally, who never got to the point where the investment felt automatic. Because once that habit is part of your life, something changes in how you see yourself. You're no longer someone who's just getting by. You're someone who builds things slowly. And that identity shift, quiet as it is, tends to change everything about how you make decisions. What you spend on, what you save for, what you're willing to say no to. That's the real compound effect. And it starts with $50 a month just as easily as it starts with $500. All right, so where does this leave you practically? First, invest whatever you can actually afford without creating financial stress. I know that sounds obvious, but most people set an investment goal based on what they want to invest, not what their actual budget allows. And then they miss a month, feel guilty, and spiral into not investing at all. Whatever number doesn't cause you anxiety to move, start there, even if it's $30. Second, automate it. Set it up so the money moves on payday, before you have a chance to spend it. The goal is to make it boring. You don't want to feel you're investing. You want it to become invisible, like a bill that just happens every month. Third, every time your income goes up, redirect a portion of the increase before your lifestyle absorbs it. This is probably the single most important lever for normal people growing wealth. Not finding a better investment. Not timing anything. Just making sure that every raise, every bonus, every extra bit of income doesn't entirely vanish into a slightly more expensive version of your current life. And fourth, give yourself a longer measurement window. Check your investment balance every 6 months, not every week. The short-term fluctuations will make you anxious and they contain almost no useful information. The 6-month or yearly view is where the real signal lives. None of this is glamorous. None of it sounds like the highlight reel financial content you see online. But it's honest. And it works for real people, not just people who already have money. I want to leave you with something that I come back to often. The compounding chart that everyone shows you, the one that ends at $2 million after 30 years, that's real. But what it doesn't show you is the person behind the chart. The months they invested when it didn't feel worth it. The years where the number barely moved. The quiet discipline of treating their future self like someone worth investing in, even when the present felt tight. That's the part of the story that actually matters. And that part doesn't start with a certain amount of money. It starts with a decision. A small, unsexy, deeply personal decision that you make again next month. And the month after that. Compounding doesn't care how much you start with. It cares how long you stay. So if you've been sitting on the sideline because the amount you can invest feels too small to matter, this is me telling you directly, start anyway. Not because the math is going to change your life immediately. It won't. But because the person you become by starting, that version of you, is the one who actually gets to see what the chart looks like at the end. Progress is always quieter than panic. And slow money, tended to with consistency, has a way of becoming something that surprises you. If this is the first time money has felt less like a source of shame and more like something you can actually work with, that's enough for today. Like the video and subscribe to Weston Wealth for more videos on wealth breakdown. This way you don't miss any of our videos.